I want to talk to you this morning from Luke chapter 24 about the power of a good walk. Anyone like a good walk? Yeah? Oh, we got some very keen walkers in the room this morning. The power of a good walk. Walking has significant power. It takes us from one place into a whole new realm and reality. And I think walking can be particularly powerful when it is done in the company of others. Charlotte and I have just started watching something on iPlayer called Pilgrimage. Anyone ever heard of this show, Pilgrimage? The idea is they take 7 celebrities and they find an ancient pilgrimage, kind of holy walk, and they take the celebrities on this walk. I think it was something like 200 kilometers over the top of North Wales, visiting so-called sacred sites along the way. And what you see is the transformative power of a walk in the company of others, as these people open their hearts to one another, as they share their spiritual experiences and their spiritual questions. I can look back in my own life at some powerful walks that have defined in many ways my journey. I can remember starting a walk up a mountain where I grew up in Abergavenny as a clueless early teenager, and ending that walk feeling like I know what I'm supposed to do with my life. What happened in between? There was a conversation with one of my church youth group leaders. And on that walk, it had become clear to me what I was supposed to do with my life. Likewise, I can remember arriving at university and turning up at a social and meeting and greeting this guy who shook hands, and then we walked back to our halls together. I started that walk as a lonesome university student searching for friends, and by the end of that walk, I knew I found my best mate at uni. There was something of a connection that happened in that conversation and on that walk that meant I left that journey in a different place to how I started. I can remember parking at the Heath Hospital and knowing I am going to get out to a lot of car tickets here, parking on double yellow lines, but I don't care because I am going into this hospital to welcome the birth of my first child. And I can distinctly remember walking into that hospital thinking, my life is not going to be the same when I walk back to this car. Goodbye sleep on this side of the walk. But hello, Toby, our firstborn son. Started the walk in one way, and I ended the walk the next day as a father and much poorer. We had, how many car tickets did we have? Like 3 or 4 car tickets? 2 car tickets on that one parking. Thank you very much, Toby, for that. The power of a good walk. Because it's on a walk in the company of others where 2 stories can collide, can come together, and can transform us as there is this interplay between one another, this relationship connection. And it is here at the end of Luke's gospel that we close our journey with Jesus through the gospel of Luke with a good walk. But it is not just a blow the cobwebs out, do some exercise on Easter Sunday kind of walk, this 7-mile journey from Jerusalem to Emmaus. No, this walk becomes, I think, one of the most defining, transformative walks that happens in human history. This couple of people start their journey in one way, they end their journey in another way. There was something that took place as they walked in the company of another on that road that changed their life. And I want to show us, as we look at Luke 24, how the start of their journey is much like how all of us start ours. I want to show us how the end of their journey is much like what all of us are hoping for in our life. And I then want to show us, therefore, what is it on this journey of life, on this walk through our lives, that can lead us from one reality into a better one. Let's start by examining how their journey started. How did their journey start? What is the start of all our stories? Well, we find two of them going to a village called Emmaus. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them, but they were kept from recognizing him. He asked them, "What are you discussing together as you walk along?" They stood still, their faces downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, said, "Are you the only visitor to Jerusalem to not know the things that have happened in these days?" How did their journey start? Their journey started in blindness and in sadness. Blindness and sadness. They're walking along the road, and along comes this fellow traveller. And we're led into the spoiler. It's Jesus. It's Jesus, the one who has come, sent by God, the one who had announced the kingdom of God, the one who had started this movement of healing and hope. The one who died on Good Friday is now, wonder of wonders, walking along the road with them. But we read, their eyes were kept from recognizing him. They're talking and discussing everything that has happened, but their eyes are kept from recognizing Jesus. How much does that actually sum up how all of us start our lives? We're walking along trying to make sense of life. We're asking life's big questions. Why am I here? What's it all about? Who am I going to be? What am I going to become? Where am I going to end up? We all walk this journey of life, asking these big questions, just as they were discussing these significant things. It's why we draw on music or art or friendship. These things that mean more to us than the material world than we can touch and feel. We know that there must be more to life. And so we ask these big questions. What is it all about? And all the while, walking along with them is the one who formed them. The one who made them. The one who has a plan for them, but they cannot see him. Friends, all of us start this life's journey knowing innately there must be more. Our hearts longing for the reality of something bigger and greater and better than the humdrum existence that we might see before our eyes. And all of us, whether we know it or not, are accompanied on life's journey by the one who is and has the answers. But how rarely do we actually see him? The Bible diagnoses one of the core human problems as being this spiritual blindness. We are living life in the dark, muddling along, trying to grasp at things that will make sense of life, ignoring that all the while within the reach of our very breath is the God who created us, the one who formed us, the one who knows us, the one who wants to be known by us. They start their journey blind to the God who made and who knows them and who wants to be known by them. That's how we start our journey, with these longings and these hopes for more, but unable to see and to grasp after the true nature of this God. Not only are they blind, though, their eyes are kept from seeing the reality of Jesus before them. Notice they are also downcast. See, in the absence of seeing and knowing and living in relationship with the God we were made for, the God who satisfies all our desires, what do we do in life? We grasp after alternatives. We look for things that can try to fill the void. We look for things that can try to satisfy our souls. We look for, in many ways, a redeemer. Something to make things okay. Something to justify our existence. So we grasp after it in relationships or in work or in possessions or in money, in experiences and pleasure. We're looking for something to redeem us because we feel the weight of our blindness. We feel the weight of our brokenness, and we need something to fix us and to make it better. That's how these couple of pilgrims started their journey too. They had set their hopes in this Messiah, but they'd felt failed by him. The one who they thought was the answer to Israel's problems, to their longings. They had seen this Jesus and set their hopes upon him and thought, he's the one who can liberate us from Roman oppression. He's the one who can lead us into God's promises. He's the one who can justify our existence and lead us back to God. But what had happened to Jesus? What happened to Jesus is what happens to all the things that we set our hopes in for redemption. He died. And they thought, there goes our hope. There goes that relationship. There goes that job. There goes that experience. It dies. It does not ultimately deliver on what it promised. They'd searched for the Messiah, but they live with this sadness. We had hoped that he would be the one to redeem Israel. And so they are sad. Maybe you're here this morning and you too have experienced setting your hopes in things that have not delivered. Putting your hopes for redemption, for your life's meaning in something that has ultimately failed you. Maybe you're here this morning and life just hasn't worked out as you had hoped. And maybe you're here this morning and you're actually thinking, I feel like I'm beyond redemption, to be honest. I feel like that ship has sailed. I feel like I've just got to muddle on through, hoping for the best or even just surviving. But ultimately, I don't trust that my soul can be satisfied, that my sins can be forgiven, that my future can be secured, that I can live a life of meaning and joy that I long for. We start our stories blind and sad. That's how they start the walk. But now let's consider how they end it. This journey takes them from unable to see what God is doing and where he is in their lives, and feeling the sorrow of having invested their hopes in this Redeemer, this Messiah, but having watched him crucified. But within just a few hours, we read at the end of their journey that their eyes were opened, verse 31. They recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. They asked each other, were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us? Then they got up and returned to Jerusalem at once. There they found the 11 and those with them assembled together, and they were saying, it is true, the Lord has risen and has appeared to Simon. Then the two told what had happened on the way and how Jesus was recognized by them when he broke the bread. Their blindness gives way to this burning in their hearts. They go from muddling along, asking the questions, to having this like furnace burning within them. I love this picture. Did not our hearts burn within us? Blindness is like a muddling existence. We're trying to make sense of life. We're trying to work out who God is and where he fits into our world. But that gives way to this being captivated and overtaken by and wholly focused upon this truth and this reality that has opened their eyes. And as I've read this week, this is the bit that's really gripped me, because I've thought, don't I want a burning life? Don't I want a life that burns with purpose, that blazes with meaning? Because I have seen something that is so significant and so true and so wonderful and so amazing that I don't just muddle along hoping things are going to work out okay and surviving, But I live every day with this passionate, this zealous, this joyful, this oozing, overflowing, life-giving, like, yes, there is something more. And I have found it. Don't you want to live with a burning? I've been reading stories this week of the Welsh revival in 1904 and 1905, a time in Welsh history where thousands of people discovered Jesus. And the nation was changed. The pubs were empty. Crime rates dropped down. And it all came because these people's hearts had been gripped by Jesus and they were burning for him. And it's made me realize afresh this week, did they have different facts that they were living from? Did they have different intel? Was there something different in the air? They had the same story. They had the same Savior. They just saw things more clearly, and so they burned. Don't you want a burning life? Don't you want a life that's lived with passion and purpose? Don't you want something that's so significant in your world that you don't just have something to live for, you've got something to die for? That's what they end their journey with. Did not our hearts burn within them? Their blindness gives way to burning, and their sadness gives way to sentness. If their sadness was like this downcast treading along the road, sorrowfully reminiscing and ruminating on all that had happened, by the end of their story, they have a skip in their step. They got up and returned at once to Jerusalem. They've got a message on their lips. He is risen. He is alive. Their sadness gives way to a sentness. They've got a joy, not just that's filling their own hearts with fire, but a joy to share with this world of sadness and blindness around them. By the end of their walk, what started as a somber march becomes this jubilant skipping, because they have discovered joy. Don't you want an overflowing life, a life of deep internal meaning, that you burn with passion for something? And don't you want an overflowing life, a life that gives away to others, goodness that invites others into a blessing that you too have experienced? Our stories start blindness and sadness. We can't see God, and we set our hopes in things that don't deliver. Their story ends burning and sentness, gripped by an overwhelming joy that they want to share with all around them. And so the question is, what on earth happened on that jolly walk? What was it? What changed the story for them? What was it that happened? Like if someone had seen me park my car at the Heath and say goodbye to my car, like, oh no, I'm walking in, and they see me walk out like $1 million, like, hello, this is amazing. What's happened in that hospital? Something has happened. Something happened on this walk that changed their lives. Everything changes when we encounter the living presence of Jesus on the road. Everything changes when we encounter the living presence of Jesus on the road. The thing that changes everything is Jesus, alive and present. Jesus, alive and present. That is what can change our blindness into burning. That is what can change our sadness into sending. Jesus, alive and present, changes everything. It is the living presence of Christ in the midst of your life and my life that can redeem all, and that can bring hope to all, and that can bring peace to all, and that can bring meaning to all. And I want to tell you this morning, however blind you feel like you came in, how many questions you had, however sad you feel like you came in, how many dashed hopes you carry, how much grief and sorrow. What changes everything for your life is Jesus. And he comes to these travelers, only one of them named, as a mark and as a picture that he wants to step into your life today. He wants to walk with you on the road today. It doesn't matter how blind and how sad you feel. It doesn't matter how far you might feel from God or from Jesus. It doesn't matter where you started your journey. The message of Luke 24, the message of the Christian faith, the message of the gospel of Jesus is that he comes to walk with every one of us. And he comes to change us by his living presence. And just note the way that he does that for these people. He walks alongside them. They're blind to God. They're asking their questions. And instead of God saying, yeah, you muddle along, you work it out, and if you work out the maths equation of life and meaning and the universe, then I will come and be found. Then I will come and meet you. If you can pass the test, if you can jump through the hoop. Does Jesus meet them on the road when they have all the answers? No. He meets them on the road in their questions. If you're here this morning and you're carrying questions and you're carrying uncertainty, Jesus wants to meet you and he wants to walk with you. He wants to be known and reveal himself to you in those questions. Look how patiently he walks alongside them. He even plays dumb. What are you talking about? This is the resurrected Christ. And he doesn't come in a flashy show of like, ta-da! Why does he come with questions? Because he wants relationship. He's not just about a song and a dance and a show in your life and mine. He asks us questions. He walks with us. He wants to draw out our hearts. He wants relationship with us. And in this walk with them, as he asks them questions and he hears them rehearse what has happened, and as they share their sorrows and their sadness with him, note how patient he is with them. Note how he listens to them. Our world in many ways is gripped in a deafness to one another. Every political party and every cause shouting their own agenda, putting it up front and center, blasting it on social media. Whereas Jesus, the Son of God, he patiently walks and he listens. He wants to know their story. He wants to know their hearts. He wants to find them in their sorrows. He wants to meet them in their sadness. He patiently walks with them. And then, as their journey comes to its close and they sit for a meal, he reveals himself to them. How does he reveal himself? He reveals himself in the scriptures. He takes them from Genesis through to the end of the Old Testament, and starting with Moses, he walks through all the prophets and he reveals himself to them. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter his glory? He opens the Bible with them and he says, this is the story, and it all points to me. And then, having walked with them through the scriptures, they share a meal together. When he was at table with them, he took bread and he gave thanks. He broke it and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. Jesus reveals himself in the scriptures. Jesus reveals himself in the broken bread of a meal. And this reminds us that if we too want to encounter the living presence of Christ, if we too want to have our blindness turned into burning and our sadness turned into ascending, then we need to go no further than opening the scriptures and by remembering what they're all about, the sacrificial love of Christ. As he took bread and blessed it and broke it and gave it to them, their eyes were opened. Why? Because just nights before, as Jesus had sat with his disciples, preparing them for all that was to come on that Good Friday, he does this very same thing. He takes bread and he breaks it and he says, "This is my body broken for you." And it is as if Jesus is saying to these pilgrims, these travelers, these couple of people who are trying to work out where is God and what is life all about, it is as if Jesus is saying, if you want to see what God is like, if you want to see how God feels about you, if you want to see what life's meaning is really all about, then look no further than this broken bread which represents my broken body. Many of us are journeying in life trying to find something that makes sense of it all, trying to find something that will redeem us, trying to cover over the wounds and the cracks, but so often it feels like we're not really getting at the problem, doesn't it? Why is it that people chase one relationship after another? Why is it that we feel like we're jumping from one experience to another? Why is it that no amount of wealth can ever truly satisfy? No amount of possessions can ever truly give us what we know we long for? It is because our base level problem is not that we are not entertained enough, and it's not that we don't own enough, but our base level problem is that we are made for God, but have become estranged from him. We have wandered. And all of our journeys, all of our walks, no matter who you are and where you've come from and where you're going, all of them have been in a direction that is away from God. But the good news of Easter is that God steps into our world and into our story, and he meets us on the road that we're on. He finds us where we are. No matter how far we feel like we've wandered from him, Jesus appears. He walks along the road. He begins to speak to us and draw out our hearts. And he brings us the scriptures and he says, the Messiah was meant to suffer. And he breaks the bread and he says, and that is what happened to me. And Jesus comes to us in our stories and he says, if you will take what I want to give to you, if you will receive this offer of fellowship and friendship with God that my life and death came to bring, then you can be redeemed. You can be made new. You can find your life's purpose and your life's meaning. You can find the joy of your sins being forgiven. You can find the peace of knowing that God walks alongside you. It is all there on offer in the broken body of Jesus. And this is what changes our lives. The key that unlocks our lives is an encounter, a living encounter with Jesus. And you might say, well, how do I get in on that then? How can I know him? How can I encounter him? And the answer is, he has done it all. And that is what Easter Sunday is all about. He is risen from the dead. He is alive, and therefore he is with us now. And anyone who calls upon his name will find that he is there next to you all along. He was walking with you all along. You may not have realized it. You may have not been conscious of it, but he has been reaching out to you your whole life's journey long. The battle is simply to recognize his presence and then to say, Jesus, yes, I receive this gift that you want to give me. I take the bread from your hand, this bread of life and of healing and of hope, and I partake and participate in it. Their hearts burned and their lives were sent because they encountered the living presence of Jesus. And they discovered in this encounter, he loves me. He's been walking with me all this time. And he's not like the things I've set my hope in. Jesus dies like them, but he alone rises again. And if I reach out and take hold of him, I can find life in his name. I want to encourage you, whoever you are today, wherever you are on life's journey, whatever the walk has been like up until this point, I want to encourage you, Jesus is with you in your life. He is on the road with you. He is reaching out to you. He is drawing your heart to him. He's been there all this time. And Jesus has a gift to give you today. It is the gift found in his broken body, the gift of forgiven sins, the gift of new life in him. And if you will pray to him, pray to God in Jesus' name and say, God, forgive me my sins and welcome me as your friend, then you will find your life's journey from this point on being one that can be lived in the knowledge that you are right with God, that you are loved by God. That's what makes the difference for these travelers on the rest of their way. Will you reach out and take the gift that he wants to give you today? And if you've received that gift, will you settle again for an existence of blindness, of ignorance to what God has done for you? Or will you receive that gift of a burning heart, remembering what this is all about, remembering Jesus is truly alive? Don't live in ignorance. Don't live blind. Remember what he has done and let your heart burn with passion for him. And don't live just in the sadness of this world. In this world we will know sorrow. But we of all people can be sent back into this world with a message of hope to share because of Easter, because he is alive. Let's stand as we're going to close our service with a couple of songs to respond.